Thank you so much. That was incredible. So we're behind schedule, so I'm going to kind of run through this as quickly as possible. One of the things that I'd like to share with you guys is why Univision Communications, why Univision Houston is in the healthcare space to begin with. And so it's quite incredible. So when most people think of Univision, they think of Spanish TV, and that's it. The story ends there. When I was recruited to join the team, I realized very quickly that their mission is not only just to entertain, but it's also to inform and empower. So we realized that we represent Hispanic America, and we realized that there is not a unified voice that does that in any other way, that we have the responsibility of engaging this audience, representing them, informing them, empowering them, and advocating upon their behalf. And so that's the space that I live in here. Also, Grace Olivares, our Director of Empowerment, she's the one that leads those efforts locally as well, and I'll talk briefly about that. So I want to give you kind of a quick overview of who we are and what we do. We are a major multimedia company serving Hispanic America and the growing multicultural and young diverse audiences that we call the rising American mainstream. We're committed to empowering, informing, and entertaining U.S. Hispanics, and we've been doing that work for over 50 years. Here's a picture of what we look like, who we are. We have amassed a wealth of multimedia platform assets and capabilities. And we realize that we've got to remain relevant. So we are growing in the multicultural space as well. We've recently purchased Gawker, The Onion, Root. We understand that Americans today are consuming media in very unique ways. And we're standing in between that gap to meet those needs where the consumer is. So we've got an incredibly powerful audience that is engaged with us fully. It's an unduplicated audience. 91% of our viewers are unduplicated. What that means is that they're not skipping from channel 11 to 12 to 13. They are focused primarily and solely on channel 45, Univision, KXLN in Houston, Texas, because they've been doing that for years. And we have studies and research that back those behaviors up. We are one of the most powerful brand recognition. Like whenever we do studies, I've heard that we're also ranked as high as the awareness of the Catholic Church. Like it's pretty up there when it comes to Hispanics and brand awareness and recognition, along with these other powerhouse brands. Here's what you get when you partner with us, because we're not just here to sell spots and dots. We're here to advocate and represent your mission and really impact our community. So we wrap these kinds of resources around you, and I think that's really important to highlight because a lot of other media platforms don't offer the advocacy, empowerment, and informational, educational things that we do. We also provide all of these services as well. So I'm going to quickly rush through this because Dr. Carlos Gutierrez and Mario Anglada have many other stats, research, and data that they're going to represent as well. But I just want to mention that we are younger, we're living longer, and that means more years of engagement. So I think that's really important as you consider this population moving forward. We are also a powerful economic force to be reckoned with. So currently, we're about between 1.3 and 1.5 trillion dollars in spending, only projected to reach greater heights, just under 2 million by 2024. That's incredibly massive. And then you see the numbers in regards to what we're spending out of pocket on healthcare expenditures, as well comparatively to non-Hispanics. Here's what we look like in regards to having health coverage in Texas. About 76% of Hispanics have some sort of health coverage. That's the breakdown. I thought that would be interesting to share per county. And then I wanted to get a little bit ingrained in that the duality of that conversation, that we're not all just on Medicaid or we're not all underinsured, but there is a population that we need to focus on, that we don't really talk about. I don't see people presenting this data. I don't see people talking about this narrative, that there are today in Houston, based on census data, 1.1 million privately insured Hispanics, and that number has actually gone up 30% in the past 3 years. That's something that folks need to be addressing and keeping a pulse on in regards to new patient acquisition. I will tell you one thing. No one in the Texas Medical Center has taken a claim or has claimed a stake and really trailblazed into a bilingual educational marketing component. I will tell you this right now. The first organization that does this in a bold way in the Texas Medical Center, this is a global powerhouse entity that we have. No other country in the world has this. The first organization that claims a stake, outright, fully, unapologetically so, we will garner the loyalty of generations to come. Because as a Latina, I live and breathe this, right? So I understand the power of cultural connection and language. My mother raised me in Houston. She's from Costa Rica, and she said to me, you are gonna be bilingual and you're gonna be bicultural. And I was like, okay, I don't really know what that means, but sure. And she raised me with a great deal of pride in where we came from, in our country of origin. And my Anglo father did the same. Texas A&M graduate, Vietnam veteran, Corps of Cadets. I mean, you know I got it from both sides, okay? I got the American Texan and I got the Costa Rican proud Latina thing going. And what's interesting is that that conversation is not being had at top-level executive offices as a strategic initiative. We have got to stop ignoring the elephant in the room. The elephant is not going anywhere. We are 58 million people in the United States. We represent 40% of Houston. We're not going anywhere, and we're not all totally uninsured. There's 1.1 million that no one's engaging. And when it comes to sensitive topics, such as healthcare, education, and finance, we want it, we need it in our native language, because they're sensitive topics, right? And we want to be able to wrap our brain completely around the medication maintenance, the treatment plan, the diagnosis, symptomology. What does that mean for me and my family? And I think that Nelson Mandela said it perfectly. And I love this quote because I don't think anyone's been able to summarize it as poetically. He said once, if you speak to me in your language, you have my head. I'm there, cognitively engaged, I'm understanding. But if you lean in and speak to me in my language, you have my heart. And that takes the conversation to another level, because then it becomes emotional. And we understand the power of engaging the emotion, because a lot of our decisions are based emotionally, right? Especially when it comes to sensitive topics such as health, education, and finance. So I want you to keep that at your frontal as we move forward in this conversation. I only have a couple of minutes left, so I'm gonna go through this. 38% of Houston is Hispanic. That's 2.6 million and a huge growth spurt. We've spent $3.3 billion on healthcare in 2014, which includes out-of-pocket costs for all services, drugs, medication, equipment, and health insurance premium plans. Massive amounts of money. In Houston, Hispanics prefer Blue Cross Blue Shield. Just under 300,000 of us are enrolled in Blue Cross Blue Shield. Aetna came in at second for just under 200,000, and United Healthcare third, rounding out the top at just under 200,000. Nearly 1 in every 5 of Houstonians, 20% of Hispanics have PPO health insurance here. And the other type comes in at number 2, which is just this huge bucket of other type. And then number 3 is Medicaid. I want to give you a quick just overview of the data and research and vast amounts of healthcare insights that we have access to. If you need information on something in healthcare related to Hispanics, we can find it. And Dr. Carlos Gutierrez, Mario Anglada, Michelle Savoy, who are up next, will be talking to you about that. Just very quickly, this is who we are in Houston. This is Univision KXLN Channel 45. We are a multi-platform. We call this thing the wheel, and it's a visual for you to walk away with. We have 5 local radio stations that we have been able to segment for all of the different listening preferences, right? So we have a equivalent of Sunny 99.1. We have an equivalent of Texas country music, which is regional Mexican. Then we have hip hop infusion with salsa, merengue, bachata. We meet the needs of all the different Latinos in Houston on our 5 diverse radio stations. We also have 2 television stations, not only Channel 45, we also have Unimas, which is 67, geared toward that younger Latino. We also have the incredibly powerful digital space that totally rocks my world because of the measurements and analytics and just the amount of data and the way that we can track people's behaviors and be where they're seeking information and wanting to look for healthcare education. It's incredible what we're able to do. Of course, on-site and experiential, that community arm, this right here is incredibly powerful in that it touches multiple touch points on where the Latinos are. And remember John Perry from Kelsey said, it wasn't the first round, it wasn't the second round, it was that final round. It's because we stayed with it. They built trust with that brand. They need to know that they're welcome. They need to know that you're not going anywhere, and they need to know that you're committed to speaking to them in language and culture. And when you do so, like I said, you will garner a very loyal patient base. The last thing I want to mention is our Contigo platform, which is basically our corporate social responsibility arm, and that we are focused on health education and being proud of our culture. And you'll meet our Director of Empowerment, Grace Olivares, that can speak to you a little bit more about that later on. But I am going to move forward to present to you Dr. Carlos Gutierrez. He is the Vice President of Strategy and Insights, leading healthcare marketing at Univision. His career in the pharmaceutical industry included 20 years in global marketing, new product development, and strategic planning in different pharmaceuticals and biotech companies. His experience includes the launch and commercialization of multiple pharmaceuticals in more than 70 countries, as well as the development and implementation of multiple disease education and disease management programs. Please help me welcome Dr. Carlos Gutierrez to the stage.